What's up, guys? It looks like we're live on Instagram right now. I'm waiting for Facebook to kick in, so give me a second here. We also got to get connected up with Luke, but if you haven't seen already, what we're going to be talking about today is going to be the new Honda 2019 CRF450L plated bike. And give me a second, guys. I see you guys popping in here. Thanks for popping in and saying hi. I'm trying to get Luke into this conversation so that we can actually talk about what we're going to talk about. We're very lucky to have Luke available to discuss this bike. Luke, are you in yet? Looks like Luke is jumping in on Instagram. For the Facebook to kick in, so bear with me here, guys. We'll start this here soon, this discussion, and start dissecting up this new bike that everyone's hearing about. Obviously, a bunch of reviews have been released today by a number of different people, and I'm an old Honda guy. I grew up on Hondas, and I actually sold a couple Hondas and ended up with my plated bike that I have currently right now, which is the KTM. But that doesn't say that I'm not interested in what people have to say about this new Honda, because definitely I'm a Honda guy roots. They just haven't had anything for a long time, so this is exciting news, obviously, to many, many people. Now, what's going on with Facebook here, guys? Bear with me here. And I'm waiting for Luke to jump in on Instagram as well. I'll go through and see who we got logged in here. Got Adam Braps. Got Nick Robertson. SoCal Dual Sport Riders is logged in. That's good. That's good. Mr. Culver. Who else we got here? Mr. Heavy Enduro. Yes, that's the guy I like to see. Sorry, Rich. Saw your call coming through, but we had to jump in here and get this started. Mr. Andy. Black Jacks. Yeah, haven't seen you for a while, buddy. Mr. Ryan Anderson. Digging it. Looks like we have... it's all good. It's all good. All right, so what do we got here? We've got go live with Luke. So Luke's coming in on Instagram on this screen. I've got Facebook coming on over here, which for some reason Facebook is lagging. All right, we got Luke on Instagram, so that's good. One down.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. We're gonna have to
adjust. I thought you were doing Facebook first. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, bear with us, guys. We're gonna have to adjust our volume too, so we don't overlap each other with both these going on at the same time. But we definitely want to document this on Facebook and on Instagram at the same time, just because it makes the most sense. And definitely, we don't want to have this interview or this chat. It's not even. I'm just a writer. I'm just a guy that wants to hear about it. I'm treating this whole live stream. I'm basically treating it as in like Luke and I are talking on the phone one night, just going over everything. And honestly, we've chatted a little bit about the bike, or a little bit about his trip up there to Washington and about the whole experience, but we have not talked about the bike too much at all. I really did want to use this as the base of our conversation. Luke, you got anything happening on Facebook on your side?
I don't see your live video going at all.
Yeah, it's saying starting live video, but it hasn't kicked in. And
okay.
Excuse me.
Give it a second.
Excuse me, guys, too. If I'm like wandering back and forth, left to right, I'm on multiple screens. I'm one of those.
I thought our dry run would have solved this problem, but
yeah.
Hey, you know, I'm on your page, eagerly waiting for this puppy to get going.
I don't know what's up with Facebook. Maybe they're just not digging the whole situation that we're trying to do two things at once. Really sorry, guys, for the delay.
Let's see.
All right, so we got both confirmed. Okay, so I got people popping up on Instagram saying both confirmed. So I'm guessing that you guys see us both on Instagram, and I get that. I've got two mobile devices going, and I've got Instagram, which you guys are seeing right here on this one, and I've got Facebook on another device that's trying to load, I guess, or trying to go live, unfortunately. Let's see here, where are we sitting?
You're looking good over there, Nick.
Yeah, man. you like this shirt,
so clean cut with that hair.
Yeah.
How do you do
it? You checking out this shirt, huh? I know.
I like that.
I know where you can get one if you want one.
Doing some yard work. That's a that's a good one. It's a good.
Man, Facebook's lagging.
We're just keeping everybody so captivated.
Yeah. Well, I can do one or two things here, which I think what I might do at this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kill this Facebook, and I am going to try to redo it.
Man, look at all those hearts. They're flying.
Post a story. Yeah, I don't know what's up with Facebook, guys. All right, so maybe what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and start talking about this, and if Facebook kicks in, then we'll have to sort it out at that point, unfortunately. Sorry, guys, for the delay, and obviously babbling on just to kind of kill some time. But so if you're logged in, you more than likely saw that we had some stories going about Luke and I talking. Yeah, I think I'm going to take mine out too right now, Luke. Adjust the volume on this one. So anyways, so Luke and I are good buddies. We've been riding for a few years now, and I was pretty stoked that he was actually able to get involved on the Honda ride, where Honda brought out some riders and got to test ride the actual new 2019 450L, which is a plated street bike, dual sport bike, you know, meant for the dirt and for the street. We've been waiting for this for a long time. So I'm going to start asking some questions here that I've got, just to kind of keep the flow going and everything. But Luke, go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, and you know, where you're from, and just give some of the people that don't know who you are some information about yourself.
Right on. Thanks, Nick. And thanks for putting this on, man. Stoked to kind of be a guinea pig for some of these, and stoked to enjoy these down the road.
Right.
My name's Luke Takahashi. I'm a co-founder of Wolf Enduro, and we're kind of enduro group based in SoCal. But yeah, Luke Takahashi, SoCal. Tarakadak is the personal IG, and Wolf Enduro is kind of the group one that we run. And yeah, that kind of covers my background a little bit.
Okay, so so you told us what group you ride with, and WLF is well known. WLF Enduro, obviously you guys kick out some great content on these different rides that people go on, and definitely just people, the whole like genre of dual sporting and off-road enduro and stuff like that for dirt bikes. Tell me something about yourself. How long have you been riding?
That one is interesting. It's been relatively a short time period. I think about five years actually in the dirt alone. Before that, there was a little bit of supermoto and scooter stuff like that, but really it was primarily surfing. I'd love to go surf. Most of the guys in Wolf surf as well, but man, once I saw some of those videos coming through of the tree riding and everything, I was like, take me there. Like that's what I want to do. So thanks, Chaz. That was big in your part.
So who got you riding?
Well, I knew some of the guys pretty well. Chaz, Keith, a lot of you guys probably know those guys. The Smiths, I kind of knew them a little bit more distant, but you know, they really took me under their wing, and literally, I mean, I couldn't go up like a 6-foot hill without being helped. Like, clutch was out, wrong gear, you name it. Like,
Right.
and they ultimately just took me under the wing. They showed me, you know, the places to be, the way to go, and it took years to get through that. But after much pain and suffering, like, kind of started to get the hang of it. So got to ride with a bunch of cool guys. Met you, Nick, Brandon, Bryce, all those guys. So many amazing people in this sport, and so it's just mind-boggling how like welcoming this community is. No matter what, I guess, skill level you're at. I mean, it's great to just be out on the trails doing battle together, you know.
Right.
And it's not really like a single person sport. Surfing was, you know, so you can go and surf for 2 hours and not even make eye contact with a guy that's sitting right next to you, you know. But in this sport, you know, you're talking all the time. You're helping guys you don't even know. You're talking to guys you don't even know, giving fuel or help, and it's just an amazing crew. So
Right.
super stoked on like the sport and community, you know.
Okay. So you've been out for a while and riding, and currently what is the bike that you're riding right now?
Yeah, the bike I'm on is the trusty Husqvarna. It's a 2015 501.
Yep.
And just that sucker's just bulletproof, you know. I mean, we've taken it through so many rides over the years.
Right.
It's got probably 12,000 miles on it. Is heavily due for a top end, and it's just an amazing bike. I mean, it's been literally through the trenches. I really wanted to take care of this bike when I got it new, but I mean, we just thrashed it. And so I'm trying to stay on maintenance, trying to make it last as long as possible. But some of these rides are just, it's really pounding this bike, you know, and there's definitely a group of guys that just want to keep going out and doing that stuff, and they're doing it. But man, I had to pump the brakes a little bit because, I mean, maintenance and stuff on these types of rides start adding up, you know, just kind of the thrashing that we put it through, you know. And with this ride in Washington, I really wanted to kind of, I mean,
explore
selfishly try and get it in some of that stuff. Yeah. And like, and I mean, not just thrash it, but I really wanted to like put it through the paces of some of the technical stuff that we get in and see how it holds up. You know, I mean, I really wanted to just like get this bike into some hard stuff, you know, equally respecting the Honda owns these, but I mean, it's really rare we can go to a dealership or get on a bike that we really want to buy or try and get it in these conditions. So, I mean, I wanted to like,
we see it already online. All these guys are talking about it online in the groups. Would you buy one? Would you not? I know you're part of the SoCal Dual Sports Riders Facebook group, which I'll touch real quick. I was wandering back and forth on some of this stuff. You guys see me doing that. I was listening to Luke at the same time. I was trying to get something going with Facebook, and it looks like it's just not going to cooperate with us. So I killed that, and we're just going to concentrate on Instagram for this one. Unfortunately, Facebook just wasn't working. But anyways, going back to what you were saying, you know, you're right. You just can't go into a dealership and then you find everyone that is open-minded or possibly wanting to hear what people are saying or asking questions. You know, I know that there's been on, you know, like I said, I brought up a SoCal Dual Sport group on Facebook, bunch of talk on there. And I think there's people that are open to the possibilities of this might be another great, you know, bike to expect, you know, that's going to hold up compared to some of the other options that are currently right now that all of us are riding. So we're going to get back into the bike situation of like how it actually is compared to what your Husky is, because that's what you've been riding mostly. But like you said, you just can't go into a dealership and go and take these things down on a trail. You can rip it, maybe if you're lucky, ride it in the parking lot, but that's not going to tell you anything. So let's see here. Let me get back into my questions here. So let's get into this whole situation that you were involved in last week. Where was it located that in Honda, you were contacted by Honda, by a representative through Honda, and you were invited to this press release day ride to get to test out the bike. Where was that at?
Right. Yeah, I heard through another friend of mine, Jeremy Mall, who runs Enduro Life, and he was pulling together and helping, I think, Jason Abbott out with pulling together some of the, the dual sport and some of the enduro crew people around. And I pretty much couldn't go. My anniversary was like on the day we were flying back, and I'm like, I can't pull that off, But ended up being able to go. Amazing trip. Honda and Jason and Chris put together such an amazing, combination. What they engineered out there for these riders to be able to take these bikes was unreal. I mean, we all love and just dream about riding in the PNW, and we got to go up there. So they set up in Packwood, Washington, which is about 2.5 hours from the Portland airport. Jesse from PNW Dual Sport, I believe spent months and months developing a route that would accommodate everything we would take these bikes on. So street, double track, graded road, single track, technical, you name it. Selfishly, a lot of us, we wanted to just get in the single track and a couple roads here and there, but it was actually perfect that we got to ride, pavement and everything on this bike, because this is what, a majority of these riders are going to be on, So it was cool that they did that. So that was kind of the orchestration of the event, was let's get these riders on elements that would, they're normally going to be on. We're not normally going to be on beautiful single track like that, but it was cool. It was a perfect setup. We got about 110 miles in.
110 miles. So it wasn't that you got to ride it on a trail for 15 minutes. You had 110 miles clocked in on this bike. So what we're going to get to hear from you today is worth a good full day's worth of ride. 110 miles is not even a common distance for majority of the dual sport riders. Commonly, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's a good size ride. Good size ride. So you've already kind of talked about who you were riding with who invited you out and stuff like that. You talked about Enduro Life, Jeremy. He's a great guy. I've rode with him. Some of the guys that you're talking about, I've rode with, and they're all awesome guys. There's some of the other guys that I'd like to ride with up in that area at one point or another, so maybe in the future. But take us through the whole experience from, did you get there at the night before or the morning of?
Yeah. We got shoveled up from the airport and got there kind of afternoon, evening, right when the ride was set up, 4-day ride for media people, dealers, to just a various different selection of riders. It was cool. As we got there, the riders from the first day were pulling in. Jimmy Lewis was there. Simon from Upshift. It was cool. We kind of got to interact with them a bit. Definitely seeing smiles on their faces when they rolled in. But they were cool about it. They were they were hush about it and about the bikes, and they wanted, the people on the next day to have, open mind about, how they're going to do on the bike and stuff like that. So there wasn't much talk there, but we got to hang out at dinner. It was real cool, camaraderie. We knew a lot of these people from their, their media outlets or pages. So that was kind of cool to put faces together. Riders meeting, told details, and kind of gave an outline of the bike. Really cool. And basically crashed out. I don't know how many hours of sleep people got that night, but people were stoked to get on the bikes. You roll out in the morning, it's barely just dusk, getting, lights coming up, and they've got these bikes just cherried out, and it's
so literally all lined up. They're all lined up.
I'm not an editor, Wolf is not known for bike testing and the journalist aspect. So this whole element was it was unbelievable. Just is this for real, because we got to experience kind of that process, and so super grateful, just smiles ear to ear and just nerves up too. It's don't screw this up, you don't want to do anything stupid, but essentially it's pick a bike, and here's a couple ground moves. Johnny Campbell was there, kind of gave the outline of the ride and what we were going to expect and what to do. Very cool. Got on the bikes and really, just went. A lot of us didn't have tracks or anything like that. Some of us had the Voyager set up on the handlebars by Trail Tech, which was super cool. So people can kind of.
so don't mean to cut you off here, but let me back up and maybe get a little bit better perspective of what's going on here. So I seen all the pictures in the morning of all the bikes underneath the tent and stuff like that. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you got like the very first one on the far left that everyone was taking pictures of. Your pack was there, your helmet was there, GoPro and that whole 9 and all that stuff. I saw it on there. So in that day, it was a Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In that day group, how many riders was there total?
There was I think there was 7 or 8 of us,
okay,
kind of from the media or social media side.
And
then they had a EM.
There was a couple.
Say that again?
There was a couple other guys there too within that. So there was like 8 guys, and then I think Drew was there. Was one of the extra guys taking pictures and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah. So Drew and Brandon, Brendan, were handling the media, photography and shooting. There was a EMT there. Okay. Jason Abbott was there to kind of run sweep, and Jesse was up front. So it was a solid group, about 9 to 10 guys. Just an incredible group. I mean, just typically you wouldn't want that many guys on this, but everybody was just in formation, doing what they needed to do and see. It was a great setup. It was really solid,
cool,
organized event. So.
And if I wasn't, I think all of us have already seen that first video that came out of the unfortunate happening of the guy that flipped out in the very, very, very beginning. And you were there because I saw in the video that he put out, you were one of the guys that helped pick up a bike or something like that. And that was pretty unfortunate. But that guy kept on riding for the rest of the day, right?
Yeah, he kept riding. And I mean, it could have been me, it could have been any one of us really. It was just such a super unfortunate mishap right there. But I mean, the Honda guy just came running up, took the bike.
Right.
We were working on it. It was just the perfect place to actually do it, other than the audience, I guess, that was there to see it. But the guys were cool, and I think they ultimately brought out another bike for him to jump on. And we left from there, but man, confidence levels were just oh shoot,
Yeah.
How it is.
Real quick, Luke, has your phone moved or anything like that? I think a little bit of the audio is kind of got a little bit different.
Does the audio change?
It just did a little bit. Maybe it just was bouncing off of something that you had it on. We got as long as this drink lasts, so we're good right now. She's still good.
Still there?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Right on. All right.
So
better?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So you got that whole mishap, that deal happened, and you guys took off, and that guy was cool. He owned it and the whole 9. If you guys haven't seen it, there's a YouTube video. The guy that actually he flipped out the bike in the parking lot, and it was pretty unfortunate to see a brand new bike like that go down. Luckily, no one was hurt. And I caught Luke in his video. I was like, man, he was on that group and everything. So cool. So you guys take off, and again, backtracking just to better understand. So who was leading the whole ride, to make sure that you guys were on track of what you were gonna see and what terrain and stuff like that you guys were to go through? Who was up in front?
Yeah, Jesse was up in front. He runs P&W Dual Sport. I think Honda called him up and definitely entrusted him with the route. I mean, he knows that area better than anybody. They run a bunch of rad group events up there, and just have an amazing community up there, of guys. We ran into some guys just who came to see the bikes and even on the trail, and I mean, they're super familiar, if not entrenched in the P&W community. It's awesome.
Right.
So he was up front. It was pretty much don't go past Jesse, just because of logistical purposes, and I mean, no doubt.
And they were saying that to Jeremy the whole time, probably, right? Because Jeremy's just on the rails and just hauling.
They did the, it wasn't the stop at the corner and wait for the next guy till they see you type train. It was more like the guy up front would have to stop at the turn and let everybody pass, So Jeremy, he would want to be up front as always, And so I'm kind of winking at him hey, don't be all the way up front. Just be 3 back, because then you're just going to have to end up in the very back, I mean, everybody was moving, but I mean, some of those guys, Mike from Kiefer Testing and I mean, Johnny and Jason, those guys fly, you know, like
Right.
I'm not that fast of a rider, you know, I'm usually on the other side of the camera and stuff like that. So riding with these guys and trying to keep up, you know, like from the video you said, it's takes everything from me to do it. But watching those guys is like unreal.
Well,
Super fun. So,
don't downplay yourself, because you can move. You can move. Don't downplay yourself. And I want that to be known, because, you know, I think that gives a little bit extra depth to understanding, like, you're actually a good contender to explain if this bike, you know, pros and cons of this bike and stuff like that. Because, yeah, you're not like, you're not, I ride with you all the time, and both me and you start a ride, and we say, we start a ride, we end a ride 100%. We don't want to get hurt. We're there for each other. And like, you know, I guess what I'm saying is you're a good contestant, you know, to being able to say if this bike is actually a contender and possibly something that might see more and more down the road, these guys picking up these bikes and everything. So anyways, so you guys I saw you guys were like jumping some possibly step up sections. I mean, I've seen, it wasn't like just stay on the trail, guys, and don't get crazy. They allowed you guys to get a little crazy with these bikes from what I've seen. I mean, I know camera angles are camera angles and stuff like that, but still, you guys weren't out just putting around on these bikes.
Right. And selfishly for me, like, that was huge. You know, like, I'm more of the, like, ask for forgiveness later type thing. Like, I really want to see these guys get on this bike and get the real feel for it, because and witness it, you know, because you can't, no matter what the forum is or what the conversation or who it is, you can't really get a good judgment without seeing it yourself, or, you know, trying it yourself, or hearing it from the person that is like jumping that road gap, you know. And after that, or doing a couple things with these guys who are really just unbelievable riders, and they look back and they're like, this bike is good. You know, like, that's the stuff you want to hear. Why I got my 501 years ago was because Mike Smith got his, and I look up to him as a freaking amazing rider. And I'm like, okay, if this freaking amazing rider is entrusting, you know, his purchase in this bike, it's good. So if it's good for him, it's good for me. And I fall in that category, you know. So, like, you know, seeing the extracurricular stuff that we were doing, whether it was jumping gaps or streets, I mean, hats off to Honda and that crew for, like, just being cool with that, because
it's a liability.
It's freaking awesome.
It's a liability to put people in that position. I mean, let's just face it. We're not. I mean, there's no two-stepping around it. No matter if it's stated or not. If I say it, and I'm not part of any organization, I'm just a rider, so I can say it. And it's a liability to watch someone go out there and put themselves, you know, in a predicament like that they could get hurt in. And it was great for them to actually do that, because ultimately, without that, you know, what are we here to talk about? Oh, it's cool in the parking lot, or, you know what I'm saying? So it's again, it's good. And Honda knew that. I gotta say, they had to have known that, and that's why they did it that way. So let's get into the bike, okay? I want to ask you, what sections? Because I saw single track, I saw some little bit of rock section, maybe, or something like that. Give me some play-by-play of, like, how it reacted, or just what you thought of the bike in single track mode versus street mode versus you know, two track and all that stuff.
I mean, it was cool to see or be on the bike for all of those engagements. And another good thing was, I mean, pretty much every road was wet, right? So it's not like you can just get on these bikes and just freaking send wheelies forever on the dry road, because you have to consider that too. We were on D606 tires. I believe they're IRCs from stock, and they were high PSI. You know, the first thing I did was kind of go up and feel the pressure, because if we're going to be in single track, low pressure for me, you know, is kind of a comfort level for me to get that traction, you know.
Well, that's got to be. So that's one of the things too to note. You're used to a bike that is, let's put this on the table too, because I know this, and I don't want to overlook this factor when we're talking about how you feel about the bike. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I think this is actually something that's very worth saying, is that I know that you have suspension done to your Husky. You have full built suspension for your weight, for your riding style. You've got, prime tire, condition, what you want to run for what condition. You're running certain, inserts, tubes, inserts, so you have already your comfort zone of a non-stock bike, if you want to say. So now you're coming out of your comfort zone and getting on a brand new, very stock bike out of the box that's not modified to your personal like at all. So whoever's listening to this, please take that in mind, that this is totally getting on something that's not even set up.
Right. Yeah, but it's huge. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest points. If the guys listening can hear that. I mean, I wouldn't say this is a massive bike test or bike review. Again, we're not bike testers, but from what I've seen, if you get a bike to test, you might get it for a weekend or a week, and you could do modifications and tweak and double check things, take off plastics and fairings to make sure things are cool. We didn't necessarily have that opportunity. I mean, I was kind of a little intimidated to even drop the pressure because I was assuming that they had a setup for, they wanted it in this kind of controlled arena. But so to say that, I mean, I was definitely riding probably at 75%, 80% in everything, just because, one, it was fully stock. The tires, suspension, all that stuff, the pressure was not to my comfort level.
Right.
And so that's huge. I mean, you carry that across the road, the double track, the graded, and definitely the single track and technical, and not knowing the trails at all that combined, it's really hard to get a real accurate feel of the bike without having that time to get the bike kind of dialed to what you want. But I don't want to take away from, the stock feeling. Like, that's definitely part of the experience is getting in all that experience on the stock feeling, because I know that, a big part of it is like, hey, here are the keys, like, take it out on what you ride. The gearing was great. The suspension felt good, and almost 90% of the stuff we did. The tires, I'm not a fan of, but I mean, it is what it is, and so that aspect is cool.
So let's get more specific here. What's the first scenario of terrain that you guys experienced coming out of the parking lot? Was road, right? Asphalt.
Yeah, it's road. Asphalt, real quick. I mean, I think it was a mile or two of asphalt, and then we got on a graded road. Beautiful trees. I mean, pretty high speed. I mean, you can get up to 40, 50, 60 in some of these, really wide roads. Washington. I mean, it's like normal roads these people take. It's not just scenic looking, and so you always got to be cautious of the two-way. So It's not like we were just freaking desert on it,
So how was it on the graded road? Like, I'm not even going to ask about the first asphalt road, because obviously you're still trying to you're on a brand new bike, you're trying to like just sort it out and whatnot. So let's skip over that, okay? Let's go to the graded road. I mean, how did it feel going down the graded road? Like, was it all over the place? Did you feel like, just what did you feel? Talk to me about that.
The first thing off is how smooth this bike is. I mean, granted, like any bike off the showroom floor is going to be smooth, like how they control it and the restrictions that they put on it, they definitely want that smooth attribute for control. It was freaking smooth and quiet. This bike was it was a pleasure on those roads. It was just like, we're just looking back and forth like, this is freaking amazing, So quiet in a sense where I almost kind of took some of these turns a little wide, because it's just,
you don't realize how fast you're going.
So quiet. The freaking thing is almost like an electric bike. It's so quiet, it's really incredible.
So while on those roads, obviously you're not in attack mode, standing up and all that stuff.
Right.
So with that association to like a graded road like that, how's the bike feel in sitting position, cruising down the road? I mean, do you feel like you're in a awkward, position going down that road when you're coming up to a turn, or do you feel stable, and did you have to stand up and get more aggressive? I mean, how did that feel in the sit down position of just riding down the road?
I was definitely more in the standing up position. I kind of like that feel of it more. Sitting down was great. the big thing that I wanted to try and feel and try and take in was the weight of this bike and how it how the weight felt on these type of roads. You know, I know that's a big discussion point, is like, oh, it's 20 pounds, 30 pounds, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, and the ergonomics of it. You know?
Yeah. Do you feel?
Well, I really wanted to try and like get on the pegs and feel that, you know, go into turns, you know, low speed, high speed, get, you know, the release, just traction and all that stuff. Weight, ergonomics, and especially feeling that chassis. You know, I've always known that Honda's got a great chassis and weight distribution scenario going on, and I just, in those scenarios where it wasn't like, you know, you're having the blast riding on single track and stuff, in those scenarios I really wanted to focus on what the weight was doing, you know, where my body was, you know, how my arms felt on the bars, stance, seat as well, but you know, where the power was kind of putting my body, you know. And I mean, I honestly had no complaints. It was like, it was smooth. Granted, I know that's like the commercial, like production feel bike, you know, like it's smooth, you know, but it's kind of like, you know, you're feeling on the outside of your pants and there's like freaking M&Ms in there and you're like, there's something good underneath this, you know, like there's something in the bones of this bike. If we can get past that, like this thing will, you know, tear out of your hands, you know, if you want it to, you know. And so I know for Wolf and what we do and stuff, we want to kind of remove those restrictions and the smoothness to get to that power where we need it, you know. And so we can go into that later, but like you can tell that it has good bones, you know, like
good structure. It's a good structure to start with.
Right.
It's So what was the next? So after the Great Road, where did you guys dip off to? Did you guys dip off into a single track right away, or what were you guys working with after that?
Yeah, pretty much we came up to some single track and kind of spaced each other out. And it was kind of good because we got 20, 30 minutes to kind of get the bearing of the weight, the distribution, the power, and the delivery of the power and stuff. Because if we were to jump in straight into single track, I guarantee you,
struggle.
I mean, a big part of the group would have been at least off the track at some point, you know, because you need to get that feel, and that was also a cool part of it.
On single track, you need to know how to like get into the corner and know when your power's out to get out of the corner. Otherwise, it throws your balance off and everything. And some people may understand what that statement means, and some might not. But you know, depending on how aggressive you are with stuff, you know, you definitely need to fill out the bike before you go and toss it in. So push it aggressively into some corners and everything. So you're on single track at this point, and I mean, when we say single track, how single track are we talking? Like, are we dragging the handlebars against trees and some rock sides, some you know, like you know, cow trail or something, or are we talking what are we talking here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you're not going to fit like a side by side in there or anything like that. But you're not exactly banging bars against the trees, you know. It's a good 30-inch track, but it gets down to a narrow. I mean, it's single track, you know. I mean, it's amazing stuff.
How the bike?
It was good. I mean, again, I was behind, I believe, Jeremy at the time, and just again keeping up with him and trying to make sure, like, you know, I'm not flying off the trail. It was great, you know. I know. There was one kind of annoying thing, and I didn't get to fit it in kind of the description that we put on the Wolf little kind of impression, but it would flame out, or the clutch caused the bike to stall in some of the really narrow technical stuff, you know. And initially, like, you know, I had my fingers on the grip, pulled the clutch in as far as my fingers, but it wouldn't start right away, you know. And there's guys behind me piling up. I'm like, Rick, this thing is not starting, you know, like, what's going on? And I'm like, a couple times, you know, that happened. So, I'm like, what's going on?
But let's say let's I guess if you want to say, put in perspective here, comparing to what you faced when your Husky was brand new, or you know, or what I faced when I had a brand new, you know, KTM, because I'm a KTM rider. Was it any much different in that type of scenario?
That was the other big thing. I really wanted to like test and get my head wrapped around was the clutch, and the clutch in tight stuff and in technical stuff. Because I mean, you know, those 15 KTMs and Huskies, that clutch and that system that they have is borderline like a recluse. It's so forgiving. It is so forgiving. It's the most beautiful clutch ever, you know.
And we all know that this Honda doesn't come with the recluse.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it had big shoes to fill, you know, coming from that system, you know, clutch and that amount of forgiveness. So that flame out was annoying, and that was something that kind of I had on my head, you know.
So
but
are you saying, I mean, flame out aside the situation, okay? Are you, the clutch, are you feeling like it's just not as, do you feel like you had to put more effort into the clutch to feather it, to play with it, compared to what your Huskies, because I understand what you're saying, the difference. It's just, you almost don't even have to think about the clutch on your bike or my bike, what we're riding, because of the hydraulic clutch. And some guys don't understand the difference of what we're talking about here. Just let's lay it down real quick. The Honda, or excuse me, the KTM and the Husky, such as myself and Luke are used to riding, have hydraulic clutches. They're very, very, very easy on the hand. You barely feel any feedback. I mean, you do feel the feedback, but it's very little. But when you're talking about the Honda now, on this subject that we're talking about right now, the Honda is not a hydraulic clutch. It's a cable clutch, which changes how things feel. So that's why, I guess if you want to say we're trying to clue in on this whole clutch ordeal, to some of you guys that don't understand why we're bringing this up, or what's the relevance to it. That's why I want to explain that just real quick. So obviously you're gonna have to work the clutch more on that bike, just at this point.
Well, it's not about working the clutch. The clutch is super responsive and super, it had a great feel to it. Like in the technical stuff, you know, went through same as, you know, didn't feel a distant difference from the Austrian bikes that we're riding or whatever. That wasn't an issue. I think it was just, and it could have been right or air. It was probably most likely right or air. The clutch, you know, flame out, or, you know, wasn't in all the way. But turning it back on when it went off wasn't reactivating. Come to find out later, it has to be pulled back all the way to touching the grip. No fingers in between to get it back turned on.
Which
you know?
what we're used to on our bikes. We're able to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit different, you know, scenario that you have to get used to compare if you're a KTM or a Husky rider. Okay. So.
Exactly. And later on, talking to some other riders, I mean, it'd be a matter of, you know, bypassing that sensor to basically you can start it in gear and it would kind of move out of your hands, you know, like you basically start it in gear on the Husky and KTM. You know, if you're in a pinch or moving or there's pressure behind you, you just want to freaking get that thing started. You don't want to have to like even take your hand off of the grip. That amount of time could cause a technical situation to go even worse. You know? So that was a big thing, and that was one of the things I brought up to the engineers. Can we adjust the tolerance of that sensor to be further out so we can start the bike auto start with that lever being further out? And that's the technical part and the issue that I was kind of referring to. Technical aspects of delivery and feel and fluidness on the technical areas, it was smooth. It was beautiful, you know, like it was a good aspect. That wouldn't be any kind of deal breaker or change.
It's just something that needs to be noted and understood, what's going on, the difference and whatnot. We've got a comment that's saying you're taking a hydraulic clutch rider and putting them on a cable clutch, and there's obviously going to be a feel, you know, it's going to be different, and we know that. And I guess the reason why we're bringing it up and we're talking about it is because that needs to be noted to someone that is trying to purchase a bike, possibly purchasing a bike like this, compared to coming off of a KTM or a Husky. A lot of guys wouldn't know that, to clue in on that, and I guess that's maybe why we're having this conversation about it. Again, it's all, the information isn't for just only top level guys, and it's not for low level. I mean, it's for everyone. And a wide, you know, perspective that I'm trying to get out of this conversation for myself, and let alone others that are, you know, watching and interested as well. So the clutch and the flame out situation, like we talked about, So that's single track stuff. Anything else in the single track stuff? How did the bike feel in the cornering and basically, you know, kicking it over from left to right and just moving it underneath you and stuff? Are you still not feeling that weight difference compared to what you're used to on your Husky?
Right. And so that was the other factor, is taking that weight discussion or that weight, you know, argument into the single track and being like, okay, I've ridden a 350. I've ridden a, you know, two strokes. I don't need to go into two strokes or that aspect too much, but I mean, take a whole lighter bike, the 350 or 450, or, you know, we've been on them all. I mean, this bike, and I just wanted to put it straight in the comments in ours, it's not an issue, you know, it's that sucker freaking turns, you know, it turns good, you know.
I mean, it's no different than us packing up for a ride and putting saddles or maybe some of these aftermarket parts and stuff like that we you know, take off of the bike but then add on and possibly have some weight difference, or even, you know, from a almost, you know, I mean, well, let's say, for example, myself and you both, you know, ride with 3-gallon tanks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how much weight right there, you know.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Yeah, so weight, I mean, for me, it went down the list really quick. Once you get into those first couple turns, you're on somebody's tail, you know, you misread something as far as rider skill goes, and to kind of get back in line with that or correct it, you know, the weight was not a factor in my riding in riding this bike. Where I was like, frick, I blew that turn because, man, I feel this freaking weight underneath me.
Right.
That wasn't at all. I would have, you know, tires, pressure, suspension, all above that in my brain, you know, before weight kind of came into the game, you know. And in some situations, weight is essentially your friend, you know, like you want some of that stuff around, you know. So, yeah. So,
anything? What's our next, you know, terrain that we're hitting after the single track? What did you guys get? You guys got in some areas where was the step ups and some of those road, I don't know if they were gaps or, I mean, I saw some pictures of some people jump in the bike.
Right.
I don't know the circumstances around it. Was it just a hit that you guys found off to the side, or was it, talk to me about that.
Yeah. It was a good mix. I mean, I think Jesse's on here. I mean, it was a rad mix of, you know, the single track would go for a tolerable amount. I mean, we'd be sweating, you know, like it'd be cold and rainy and you'd be sweating at the end, you know, so it was great. And then you'd go on 2-track for a little while, some scenic awesomeness, be able to get on it again, you know, and really feel the more high speed controls and agility that this thing's got. And then you'd hop on a road and then back on a 2-track, and then you'd get back and do single track or technical stuff. So in those transitional areas is where those guys would find these areas to, you know, mess around. Yeah. Exactly. And so, or if there's like a photo need to be done, you know, you'd kind of go through, and there would be like a gravel area over here, and it's like, cool, we're going to go over there for a little bit and try some stuff, you know, and really, or if there's literally a pile of rocks, it's like, cool, I'm going to go through those rocks while I'm waiting. I mean, the clock is ticking on how long we could sit on these bikes, and it's like, dude, let's get it on everything. You might as well be riding it. Yeah, for sure.
So did you hit any like good size obstacles, whether they were, you know, big holes or rock sections that were just, you know, something that you can pound the bike through? Talk to me about some of that feeling.
Yeah. I mean, all along the way on the technical stuff and in the single track, there was opportunities to get on that. Not only that, there was typically exposure on the side, so there was consequence, definitely, if you're not on it, you know. And so like where we ride, Johnson Valley, Big Bear, you know, I mean, there's openings, and you go off the edge, you're not really gonna, you know, get hurt because it's wide, you know. But there was some drop-offs that were pretty rad, you know. So that was kind of a factor. Some of the other guys would definitely take it to a riding level that I'm not capable of even. And just watching that was, again, important to see their comfort level when they're doing that, and to see if they're enjoying it and their reaction to that. I mean, I was just literally watching, even, you know, just little offshoots or little jumps, little hits, little rocks that they would boost off of, you know. How would they, you know, how was their control?
But they were, I mean, were they getting all, you know, out of control, or was it like you saw them on their own regular bike?
Yeah, exactly. And there wasn't like a matter of panic or, you know, like out of control, like, holy crap, this bike does not handle in this situation here. That I didn't really see that, you know, I didn't watch everybody, but like that's definitely an observation I was taking in because, I mean, we're going to start, you know, we'd get into that later in more comfortable areas that we would ride.
Yeah. So tell me where you really liked how the bike performed, whether it's performance, whether it's cornering, suspension, just like, you know, bombing through something. Where did you, what was it that you really, really enjoyed that bike? What kind of terrain did you really enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, it'd have to be the single track still, you know. I mean, that's our dream, our ideal stuff is that tight singles track, you know. I'm not super fast rider like in the desert, or, you know, I kind of get sketched out on some of that, but like I love being able to push it on that single track area. And some of those were nice and wide and trees where you can really, you know, let the end out and like just get into it, you know. So that stuff was super fun. Those transitional roads and stuff is beautiful. I mean, again, they did it right as far as, I mean, you can't take a bad picture there. You know, you can't
It's all green.
Be on a road that is not, even if it's a, you know, fire road, it's freaking unbelievable, you know? So it's like the excitement level is freaking high because it's beautiful there, you know? So they definitely did that right, you know? And so, but at the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't, oh, my back hurts from sitting on this seat, or, you know, like my arms hurt because I'm working the front bars more than I would, you know, without a suspension tweak or like different tires. You know, it was just a nice even keel day of like, man, we kind of hit everything and we got to experience everything, and it was a nice balance, you know.
So there's got to be somewhere on the ride that you just was like, this bike is not where it needs to be. Like, tell me, you had to have something out there.
Yeah, and funny enough, I'd probably go back to the single track, you know, like in some of those tight areas, you know, if the tire's hitting some rocks weird and the suspension is, you know, adding to that weirdness for me, yeah, it would be a freak out. You know, you'd go off the trail, or you would, you know, kind of sketch out a little bit. And so I think it was kind of I guess like a love-hate thing where it's like, this is freaking awesome, but at the same time, I'm really freaked out because, you know, it's not quite set up, or I'm not used to this bike in a sense, you know?
So it's fair to say, in stock form, you had fun on the bike in those areas, but if you wanted to really get down and get comfortable and you know, get on the gas a little bit harder, obviously it wasn't going to keep up with you. And that's where, I mean, any of us would dial in a bike to a little bit more specific, you know, whether it be tire selection, suspension, you know, all the above, you know, type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of what it is, you know. I mean, this transmission is freaking awesome, you know. I mean, they're right about that 6-speed being just freaking work of art, you know.
How did it, like 60, I mean, what were you guys riding on the road or gravel? What were you guys doing, what, 50, 60 miles per hour?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much raining here and there, so I mean, we didn't want to get crazy, but I mean, in straightaways and stuff, you could get easily in the 70s and up into 80, and, you know, like,
but I mean,
in sixth gear.
Did the bike feel like it was geared up too tall for something like that, for that
kind
of mile per hour?
No, it felt great, you know. But I'm just, you kind of, depending on if you tweak the bike later, you know, with different gearing, you know, you might give some of that up, you know. I mean, that's just the trade-off that we do. But that aspect on road felt good, you know. I wasn't super confident in those 606s in the wet, raining pavement, you know. So that was kind of, I just didn't want to freaking drag myself and the bike along the road. So I was kind of keeping it chill there. But I mean, it's freaking.
So we've gone down through the bike, kind of the stuff that you liked about it. some stuff that you wanted to, that you would value having upgraded, more on the personal side once, you know, you purchased the bike and then you did some upgrades to it and stuff like that. Not so much the you know, the actual foundation of the bike situation, but whatever that you can add on to it. So so I know we had a brief talk earlier, and tell me 3 essentials that you really valued, or I guess if you want to say, let's talk about some positives and some negatives of some scenarios that you faced going into this ride and going through it by the time you got back later on that evening. You had some stuff that you had stated to me earlier that I wanted to touch on. Maybe you can give me.
Yeah, I guess about the setup that I brought type thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I didn't do too much research on the weather going into it, you know, and I probably should have, you know. I just barely grabbed a jacket real quick, but I essentially I wasn't set up for climate. I mean, the pants that I brought, the jacket and the gloves, I was pretty cold and a little wet.
So definitely we need to think a little bit wiser if we take another trip up there.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely look into the climate and what you're up against wherever you're riding. That's key, you know. But I mean, in my brain, I'm thinking, shoot, it's the middle of, you know, summer. Like, America is gonna be sunny and beautiful, you know. But it was cold, you know, and I mean, the photographers were cold, and it didn't take away from the enjoyment of riding the bike necessarily, but like. I would definitely say, you know, look into the weather and stuff before you go, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, some of the things that I really liked having on the trip was, you know, the camera stuff. I didn't get a lot of opportunities to take some images, you know. I mean, it's
the point of you going up there wasn't. Yeah. I mean, so. I'll put a little bit more extra info into this so people understand. Luke is usually the guy that we're riding and he'll jam off and, you know, up in front and say, hey, hang back for a second. And then you guys jam, you know, past me and I'm going to take pictures and stuff like that. So, and I got to give credit to Luke on that end, because the guy is awesome. I go riding with him. We come back and he takes the time out of his day to, you know, go through all the photos that he's taken. He'll edit them and he hands them over to me. And I want to give some big props and thanks to that as well. So I guess the reason why he's starting to talk about this, if you don't know already, this guy is always the man behind the camera. And this time it was the opposite way, to where he was the guy that had you on the bike and the other camera guys were shooting him, which I think it's cool, man. I mean, very seldom do you see Luke, you know, on the other side of the camera. Yeah,
I mean, at Wolf, it's definitely a group effort. You know, there's definitely a bunch of us handling media and content. So, I mean, I was stoked to have a camera, stoked to take pictures of some of the guys and get, like, even the lifestyle when we're kind of, you know, sitting and waiting or at transitional sections. It's just great to kind of document some of that stuff.
So. I'm not going to cut you off. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off.
Cut away. Go ahead.
Instagram's telling me that I've got 1 minute and 30 seconds left remaining on this live stream. So let's get just to the meat and potatoes of this deal.
Yeah.
Do you like the bike?
I really like the bike. I really like the bike, you know, and it's, again, I'll just go back. I know, and I can kind of feel the bones underneath the restrictions that are there, you know. Right. So just because we've ridden, you know, factory or stock bikes off the showroom floor, you'll get that feel regardless, you know. And so if you can kind of look back that, and if you could feel what you're riding, I mean, don't get discouraged on what you hear. I mean, there's bones on this bike.
Definitely, everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you're happy with the bike. It's a consideration of possibly.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, I think me and you are both on the same page. We've kind of chatted, and you know, we like modified bikes, so we're waiting to see what happens on that side of things. Right. But it's a great foundation from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's an amazing foundation. I mean, again, it's tough because this is a dual sport market, and again, like you said, we like modified bikes, we like power, we like that stuff. So it's tricky because I mean, it's a dual sport. This is a commercially sold bike for the road, so it's.
We're getting cut off in like 9 seconds.
Yeah.
So, Luke, thank you very much for taking the time. Everyone that followed, thank you very much, and we're out, I think.